you're really good on Facebook of criticizing it. I call a lot of people on this, but I've never seen you at the board.
They don't even really understand what they're talking about.
Yep.
But once you understand, it's really easy to connect the dots.
When I was chair, a lot of broker owners didn't want their brokers coming to YPN. They thought they'd be poached. And I would say if you're a broker owner and that's your concern, that probably should not be if you want the best for your agent, right?
I think when they're in highly competitive situations like that, where they see other agents that maybe are successful or doing things right, that should be a good thing.
Look, we're not slowing this roll down. So what we do while we're here is what matters.
Just do it, and if it works, then it worked. But it's like, oh man, I can never get an appointment set because of all these cold calls. How many calls did you make? 5.
What would your advice be for a new realtor? Like, just got their license today, they don't know what to do. What do they do?
That's a big one.
Hi everyone, I'm Kari Wright, and I am the 2024 Co-Chair of YPN.
And I am Kyle Wong, the 2024 Chair of YPN. And we have a very special guest here today, Mr. Patrick Muldoon, who is, I'll let you go through. You're very stacked with...
Am I? Yeah. So I used to be chair of YPN. That's kind of where I got my start. And then I worked up through several board positions, president of RSC, which is our MLS, Realtor of the Year, 2016, and numerous other things, helping around the board and volunteering. So I'm glad to be here.
Is Realtor of the Year a local association thing?
It is. Yeah, I mean, it's also at the state level, but all the boards have a Realtor of the Year. Cool. And only one time do you get nominated and can do it, and then you're out. So like you lock it up and you're out the door. So
You would have got it more if that was
an
in a role.
honor to have it. Yeah.
That's really nice. Yeah, so we're here under Pikes Peak Association of Realtors, if you guys didn't know. And the reason why we have our very special and first guest, actually, Patrick Muldoon, is because we want to go back in time just a little bit and talk about the origins and the history of YPN and how we got where we are today.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is great. I don't even know what we're talking about, right? So right now,
Off the cuff.
I am just here to bring in the history and probably get stumped on a few things you might have.
Okay, so let me ask you this specifically then. When you've been in the business for a long time, we'll go into that a little bit more, but when you got into YPN initially, what did it look like? What was just the climate of everything under the association?
All right, so you guys are gonna love this. So when we first got into YPN, Shane Bruckner, who was a realtor in town, called me up and said, hey, there's this new thing, it's at the board and we need to go to it. It's called YPN. I said at that point, I said, I don't like hanging out with realtors, which is complete reverse now, right? Now like all of you guys are my best friends. At that time,
So he says.
we ended up going to the Ritz. And if you've been around long enough to know the Ritz, it's a club that was here, basically a bar and a club. And there was no sectioned off area for us. We just showed up. I didn't know who was realtors, honestly, and who was actually stopping by for a 5 o'clock drink.
Wait, this wasn't the Ritz-Carlton.
It was the Ritz just down here
Gotcha, okay.
on Tejon. So that was my first introduction, and it was very casual. We didn't have a board meeting, or I'm not sure if there was a board meeting. I went to the social. So I started at the social if there was a board meeting. And then that kind of started my path, which was later in my career, right? So I've been licensed at this point a period of time. I have not volunteered at the board at all, and this kind of gets me into it.
Wait, so YPN was your introduction?
To volunteering at the board.
Really?
Yeah, which is why I'm an advocate for it.
Huh.
I mean, it worked for me, and I figure it works for a lot of people, right?
Right.
So
What year was that?
that would probably be in 2011.
11. Okay. Nice.
Yeah, so it goes back a
been a
ways.
minute.
Yeah. Yeah, we were kind of pioneering, as far as I understand, for the Young Professionals Network. This was new across the nation at all the boards. So while we were doing it, boards were just starting YPN also in Denver. Gotcha. And at that time we had a chair, her name was Becky Baker. And so this is kind of how it began. I do remember I ended up in a boardroom at some point in time, but it did start over socializing, which is why I'm an advocate for the socializing part of it. I think that's where a lot of people come and go, I'm gonna have a beer with everybody. And then they're like, oh, there's other stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the, hook.
So it like funneled you into seeing what the association does and then how else they were involved and how you could plug in.
Yeah. YPN became a springboard for me to everything else after that. And when I say that, I will tell you that the board is very good at picking people out and going, this is somebody who should probably be involved in a few other things. So sometimes you'll get tapped, right? They'll see that you should be somewhere else, you're a good fit. And at times you'll be requested to maybe sit in on a committee that you weren't aware of or be a part of something else. The leadership at the board is very good at picking out leadership.
Yeah, so I've
As
noticed.
you know.
I was going to say that's kind of
Yeah,
how
that's
I
exactly-
started.
that's right.
So me and Kari actually met at YPN. I think we met at YPN. I think
We all
that
met at YPN, I'm pretty sure.
it's just kind of funny because that was my initial funnel into the Pikes Peak Association of Realtors, into public policy, into community relations, all the things that I'm now involved with. It started out with YPN. If I'm being completely honest, I can't even remember who invited me. I know I met you early on and we just went back and forth. I really gleaned from your experience. And then we met similarly at a social afterwards because we have our monthly meeting, obviously. And then where did we go? We went to our social at Oscar Blues. And then I think we went to D11 just downtown.
Yeah.
And that's where I met you. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is really cool the way you get to connect with people. And it doesn't feel like, you ever been to a BNI group and you're like, hi, I'm in insurance.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
You've
great.
got
give me
the
a
thing
card.
I liked about YPN is it was all realtors.
Yeah.
Right? At the time, we also had a citywide YPN that was trying, I don't want to say compete with, but was trying to be more involved. And a lot of people weren't really wanting to do that, but they started to be on the same day. And so then I really started to value the realtor relationships
'Cause they're
over
not trying to
what
sell
you
you
were
on
just,
anything.
yeah, it was always about like, I'm an attorney, I'm this. On the other side, it's like, we're realtors and we can share our stories and experiences and help each other grow.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
okay, so once you started getting, I guess, more serious and involved, and you're like, oh, YPN is like important, and all the other things that the board does is important. Then what did that look like inside, I guess, for Patrick Muldoon of like, oh, I need to take this seriously. I want to plug in. I want to give back. I want to be involved.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough at that time to have been licensed for a long time. And also at that time, I was handling bank foreclosures. So I knew a lot of people in town through time in business and answering a lot of phone calls. When Becky Baker decided to move out of being the chair position, she called me and asked me to be chair. So that's how I ended up being chair, was just the simple request. And at that point, we probably had 7 or 8 people that were consistent that were showing up to YPN.
How long was that? Like from when you started YPN to when you became chair?
I would say 6 to 8 months probably.
So that's not long.
Becky had already served part of a term and then part of another term. I had gotten involved partway through that and then taken it up.
So there were not official term limits, I guess, or set times at that point, right?
It was so new. I mean, really, it was just so new we were feeling it out. So for me, when I became chair, then I started calling people to bring people in. So I really wanted it to be something bigger than it was. I wanted people to be very involved in it. And so I started picking up the phone. And I had a very vocal office also. So I had people in my office that were showing up who were also picking up the phone. So before you knew it, I would say within a couple months, we were pretty much maxing out the conference room and getting 30 to 40 people to socials almost all the time. And it was great because we used that then to build everything else. So now YPN's doing Habitat for Humanity and YPN's doing all these different events that we had literally never done. That's where that kind of began on that. It's also where we learned a lot of stuff that worked and didn't work, which is why I think it's good if you come up with ideas, you're like, have you tried this? Because one thing that we did try was splitting up the meeting and the social, and it didn't work.
Wait, did you host the meeting at the same place you hosted the social?
No, we would do the meeting here, and then I happened to not think the Ritz was a good place, but I happened to know the Guadagnolis at the time, so we moved it to the Red Martini because they would give us the Red Martini for the night, which was great. It was a great place because it was really sectioned off and easy to control. Yeah. Similar to Oscar Blues.
Gotcha. Wait, so what do you mean separating the social and the meeting?
Well, we had tried to determine whether or not we wanted to do a morning meeting and an afternoon social.
Oh, yeah.
But what we found out is, you guys know, realtors are not very good at that. So to be able to block off a whole day made it much more successful. So they knew at 3 o'clock they were basically
Done.
They're done.
done.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're drinking.
Yeah. You're going to hit the meeting and then we're going to go have some fun.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I know you had an established business before going into YPN and becoming involved, whereas I feel like a lot of people that we have now, or at least the people that we are looking for to support are younger professionals. Again, we always say young in the business, young at heart. Those are the people who don't have established businesses. They don't have established relationships. They don't really know people. Sometimes they don't even know the city. And so coming into that, how do you think that would be of value to them as opposed to you being on the other side where you're like, dude, I've got all the business I want. Like, this is super helpful for me. This is more supplementation rather than like me building from ground zero.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. So I look at this as two ways, and I looked at it this way back then too, which is first, you've got more mature agents that have been in the business that can share their experiences with new agents, help them out, give them advice, right? So that's one side of it. The flip side of that is, I think when you join YPN, people underestimate the relationships you're going to make inside your business with your realtor friends that you're going to be on the other side with. So are you going to learn a lot of great stuff at YPN that's going to help you with your career? Yes. Should that be the only thing you're trying to do? No. Because at some point in time, I'm going to be doing a transaction with you, and it just so happened it went really smooth because you and I were also friends outside of that transaction. And I would say most of the people I socialize with today in real estate, I've met with originally through the board or at YPN. So, and a lot of these people started out, and they've got great stories where they started out just like you guys, new to the business, and now they own their own company, or they are a managing broker, or so they've been board members here. They, all these different positions that if you had gone back to 2012 when we were there, we were no different, right? A lot of these people had only been in the business 3 or 4 years. So it's amazing to see that maturity grow as these people have gone into their business, grown up, and then matured into business owners and brokers and team leads and so forth. So I think there's a lot to be said there. And I think if people are small-minded, like, what is this going to do for me today? Probably the wrong way to look at that. Yeah, it should be, what can I provide to YPN myself? Yeah. And what can I get as far as the friendships and relationships go? And if you start there, the rest kind of builds itself out.
Yeah, I agree. Like even the community aspect, I think as a whole, unfortunately, our industry tends to have sort of a negative connotation of like quick money, don't do much. They just want their check and they get out, no relationship whatsoever. Where if you see the successful people in the business, it's very much so the opposite. It's years and years of sacrificing and serving, and not just our clients, but also the people on the other side of the deal, looking out for their best interests as well, looking out for the community and the things that they're involved in. Because at the end of the day, like, we all live here. Like, we want this place to be better because we are a part of it. It matters to us. And so I think that's one thing I neglected early on getting into YPN is maybe in the back of my head or at the forefront, I would always say like, yeah, I want what's best for other people. I want to serve my clients well. But part of me was trying to glean from the veteran agents and learn what I could from those who had experience. But I neglected the other side where I wasn't really building those solid connections and relationships with newer agents with me. And so, shortly after we met, I was starting to get more serious about like actually building those friendships and relationships and serving them, as opposed to just, what can I learn about this? Because it's good to be like a sponge and learn all that stuff, but there's so much more than that.
Well, and you realize the longer you're here that everything that we're all enjoying was paved by another volunteer in front of you. Right, so when you start thinking about that side of it, it's pretty mind-blowing because somebody 10 years ago or 20 years ago was sitting in these same boardrooms, in these same organizations as a volunteer laying out the map that we all enjoy in this business, right? And I love this business. So my thought was also I wanted to give back because we couldn't really, in 2012, I was selling a ton of real estate, right? And a friend of mine in YPN said, I don't understand why you give back. And I said, because in 10 years, nobody is going to know I sold a ton of houses in 2012. What they will remember is the story of, I called Patrick and I had a contract question and he helped me out. Or he was nice to me on the phone when I had an REO question. Nobody's going to know I sold a ton of real estate in 2012, right? They're not going to remember that. Their takeaways is, you gave back, you were good, you answered the phone, you were polite. So I think, yes, my career is great because it allows me the opportunity to afford the stuff and a living I like. Outside of that, that's not going to help you. What's going to help you is, Patrick, I've got a question on a condo, and I'm not sure about this, and I actually find the time to answer it for you, despite having no monetary gain from it.
Yeah, which is something you've actually done for me. So it's not. I know that's not just something that you say. Where it's I've called you up, I think on several occasions now, specifically for things that were just outside of my experience, and it was short sales. Yeah. And I was like, Patrick, like, what do I do? What do I look for? What's going on? And of course, you can talk to your managing broker, and you should. But having somebody that has the experience and that cares about you and your personal growth without saying like, oh yeah, give me a cut of this, or like, what am I going to get out of this? It's like, no, he just wants to help.
Right.
Yeah. Relationship.
That's our legacy. Right?
Yeah. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
I have a question. What does YPN really mean to you? Like, I know there's a lot of benefits that you have, but what does it like mean to you in a personal sense?
Sure. The YPN here I am personally attached to because I was part of those like founding layers, right? So that's important. But I really believe YPN is the jumping board into other parts of the board. So for me, I see it as the foundation of getting younger realtors involved at the board level. And without YPN, which anybody here can attest to now, is I don't know how you get that into place because a lot of the people that sit on the board or have become leaders came out of YPN.
Yeah.
And so it just goes to show how important it is. It's not just about a happy hour or even the board meeting. It's the fact that that board, then that committee, council turns into leaders going into the board of directors and sitting on these different committees and just being more involved. So I just see it as the jumping board into better things.
Yeah, that is so true. Because I feel like the barrier to entry, if you just took a new agent, I mean 2, 3, 4, 5 years and said, hey, do you want to be on the board of directors for PPAR? They're kind of like, whoa. It feels like there's a very thick barrier to entry, and you're just like, well, that's a very serious role, responsibility. But you start out at YPN, you have fun, you enjoy your, friends and relationships that you have, but you're also learning, getting involved, and then you start learning things like event planning, right? That's something that we did for the Halloween party that we had done.
Yeah.
When you start getting involved on other committees for fundraising, for marketing, you start learning all these aspects that are very tangential and also parallel to your current business. And then you start realizing these positions that you once thought were so, high and mighty, which they're great and they're very important. You take these little incremental steps, and over the years, you're like, oh, I'm actually very prepared and qualified, and I desire to give back in that way.
You realize it's attainable.
Yeah.
And it carries over into absolutely other areas of your life, right? So it's not only here that you maybe sat on a committee and you learned stuff from that committee, but now at your office, you're different because you've got leadership skills you didn't have before you got here. That's so important, I think. I also, for me, what happened was after about 18 months of building YPN, I was like, okay, I think I've done what I wanted to here. And so I was going to dip out, and then the board was like, we'd really like you to run for the board of realtors, like on the PPAR side. Yeah, they were like, we think you could bring good stuff there. So as I said, they were very good at picking out the next step. So I did run for the board, and I got nominated, and then I made it. Well, at that time, you had to then chair one of the committees or co-chair. Okay. So I ended up going into community relations. And community relations was also not doing very great. And so I was like, we should definitely have more than 8 people here. So then I just started commingling the two. I was like, everything I did over here, I'm going to do over in community relationship. Yeah. So now I'm going to just do this cross-contamination between YPN and this. And so it dragged people out of YPN into community relations, and then we just started to grow that out. So then that grew into a great thing, and we started really trimming events that we were doing and getting more of a game plan that's more specific to what we were doing. So instead of having 12 or 14 things we were trying to tackle, I cut it down to 6. I was like, we're going to do these 6 good. Yeah. Because we're just not getting done what we need to do. And so the Board of Realtors and Community Relations, I think I've sat on almost every committee in one way, shape, or form. I've liked some more than others, for me.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, what you said about that, because I feel like a lot of committees, organizations, even companies, they do things because they're supposed to, or that's tradition, and that's what we do. And it's like, it begs the question of why. That's why I think having fresh leadership and having fresh eyes, especially younger, newer people in the business, question respectfully, of course, like, why are we doing this? What
Absolutely.
Is this for?
Yeah.
And not just say, oh, we throw this event every year. Okay, but why? Who is this benefiting? Is it worth our time? Is it something we even want to do? And putting that time and effort into something that's qualitative and not just quantity. Oh, we do so many events. Oh, great. But like,
well, we needed people to be invested in it.
Yeah.
Right? If you've got an event nobody's invested in, what's the point of the...
Who cares?
Right. So once we narrowed that down to, we've got 30 people in community relations and 6, now we've got 8 to 10, 12 showing up to events to help out. It just changed the dynamic, and it got more people involved at a much better level. At some of these events we'd go to, it'd be like 3 staff members and myself. Nobody showed up. I'm like, why are we doing this? I mean, I get the event's a good event, but does that mean it's a good event for us if we can't get people to join it? And so then we started switching things around. And like the parade of lights, right? We had never done that. Mindy at my office, just out of nowhere in community relationships, like, why don't we do the float? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so then that's how that started, was just like, this is what we're gonna do. And that we get a lot of people behind. People love that event. So yeah, and it's very forward facing for the board. So those kind of things come up, and then you tackle them. And so then you start finding out how these events came in and why they're successful, and we've had plenty fade away too.
Yeah. And that being said, I will say being a part of YPN specifically, but also PPAR as a whole, being on the inside and actually serving, it's weird saying this now, but at a leadership position, first of all, just how much goes on behind the scenes. Because I think a lot of people, they see a flyer, they see a Facebook post, they see a text for an invitation. It's just kind of like, it's just another thing to like blow off, which I get it. We get inundated with information. We get inundated with events. Come to this, sign up with this.
Realtors are 30,000 foot people anyways. They're like, did it have a picture?
Right.
I mean, that's.
The things that we do here, in my opinion, are truly those quality events with quality people that are invested, that actually want the best for you. It's not just like, we're throwing in events because like we heard that it's good for marketing. It's
That's
like, we just want people to show up. Like, no, we want people to show up, and we want them to care, and we want them to be a part of it.
Yeah, community.
Yeah.
Through the board is really what it is. And I think that's the one thing I've learned over the years is it's very easy to criticize it until you're part of it. And then once you're part of it, you realize it's harder to criticize it because you get to see how it works and how people's sweat, blood, and tears is put into it, and they're not getting paid. Yes, staff is getting paid, but I'm saying the volunteers aren't getting paid, and they're selling houses every day. So these people are making decisions based on the industry while being in the industry while not getting paid for it. It's hard to criticize that.
Yeah.
You know, and I
That's a good way to frame
try
it,
to
actually.
encourage people to jump in all the time and go, look, you're really good on Facebook of criticizing it. I call a lot of people on this, but I've never seen you at the board.
Right?
Where's
Right?
your input?
How do you
Yeah.
know what you're talking about?
You seem like you don't know how this works, or that the board on MLS is literally realtors that are using the MLS you're complaining about.
Yeah.
Those decisions don't go lightly, right? In fairness. So is it right 100% of the time? No, because people make mistakes, boards make mistakes, things come up. Okay, I get that. But there's not one realtor out there that's running any business that hasn't made their own mistakes on their team, in their industry, in their business, with their CRM. So then I think if people saw how it worked and got more involved, even if they didn't get involved themselves, but they got involved, just see how it works, they'd be like, oh, I mean, they're doing a good job.
It'll bring a better understanding too. Like, people are so quick to criticize, but they don't even really understand what they're talking about.
Yep.
But once you understand, it's really easy to connect the dots.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good observation.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I hear that all the time, especially with social media these days. People love to be like, well, it's stupid. I would have done it better.
It's social media has given everybody a platform that's very quick
Yep.
Yeah. And there's no like
without
feedback.
any thought, right?
Right.
Because you just say it and type it,
Like,
click
I'm
send,
done, and then
it's
you
there.
roll off down your day, and it's just sitting out there baiting people who are looking for it.
So true.
Right.
Well, so that being said, I mean, with the advent of social media and like just that overall connectivity that we have these days that even 10 years ago you didn't have quite as easy access to, right? I mean, even our main form of communication is email and our Facebook group, right?
Right.
So with that, what would you say, in your honest opinion, having seen pretty much from conception to where we are now, what does it look like in your view, YPN as a whole, versus where it was before? And this is going to be a hard one. What do you like, and what would you like to see? Like, what do you think we could do better utilizing the technology that we have that you guys didn't have in the beginning?
I would say part of the reason it was successful in the beginning was because we were very hands-on. So we did have the technology. If you go in the Facebook room back to the beginning, I mean, we were using Facebook very early as a room. But I would say a personal invite is so much more than a post, right? It's a lot harder if I'm like, oh, I just invited 700 people in this room to come. Or I call you and I said, hey, Kyle, Patrick, I don't know if you saw the invite, but I would love to see you at YPN. We're doing some pretty good stuff. And then you feel much more attached to that invite than just the 500 invites we all get every single day in Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And so I would say maybe it was more successful with more people because we had to make those calls instead of just relying on a social media or an email. We used MailChimp for a long time to test that side of it. But really, at the end of the day, it was us calling people, calling our brokers, calling our friends.
Some things don't change.
I think that part of our industry and people touching, the handwritten letter still goes a long way, right?
Yeah.
And I think people feel that. And so that's why when you make that call, or you have 4 or 5 people call, or you go to your office and you go, hey, we really need to be more involved in this. This is a really great group. We're doing good things. We should be there, especially now because not everybody's super busy. It's not like 2 years ago. So I think at that point, that probably goes a long way.
Yeah, you're definitely right. I mean, I think market cycles determine a lot, actually, because being the fact that it is YPN, a lot of our agents haven't seen multiple market cycles. A lot of people haven't seen either one or the other. A very high, busy season where marketing, prospecting just simply looks different. You're running your business slightly differently, or at a very low season where you have to make those personal connections, those personal calls, and kind of dig your roots down a little bit deeper. And so it would be interesting to see how that affects, because here as of recording, what is it, May 2024? I mean, what would you say that looks like now? Who are the agents that are coming to YPN as opposed to the ones who are like faithfully coming every month during 2021?
I would say between those 2 years, you've got the diehards that have been there the whole time, right? They believe in YPN. They go back many, many years.
Yeah.
I think where we're probably not getting the word out, and you guys are parts of companies that there are younger realtors that you should be inviting, is just that simple call, show up, get more people to call, more people show up. Now, I think then you utilize social media, right? Then you take the pictures of you and your friends and you tag people to say, we had a great YPN tonight. So I think they go hand in hand, but I just think the word of mouth, I mean, how many invites do you guys get in a day on social media? It's like this birthday party down to this wedding, right? Everything's on there. So it's very easy to get inundated. So I think consistency also. So one of the things is with consistency, consistently posting in the Facebook room, consistently weekly. It was something that I've been advocating for since I left the position, is consistency of posting what's going on in the Facebook room weekly. I used to post every Tuesday about our next event and who was going to be there in an actual post. So I would do the calendar invite and then the post who's going to be there. We're going to have so-and-so with the tax assessor there, right? And then I would post that every Tuesday. So everybody knew that because they have to see it.
Yeah.
They don't see it, they don't do it.
Realtors are bad at putting stuff on their calendars.
Plus you get like little teasers and who the sponsors were, right? So it's like, hey, we'll see you on the 13th. Here's our 2 sponsors. Here's something we're going to be talking about. And here's the social time. And I would just copy and paste that to the next week then. So that next Monday I'd post it for Tuesday. And so if you look, it was very consistent. And I think that consistency builds. Gotcha. Once people have consistency and they see it, they know.
Yeah, because one big difference that I've noticed, at least from what I've heard about, current YPN versus how it started, was we are such a well-oiled machine. We have so many processes and things in place, terms, like organization for setting up the agenda for the meetings. I mean, gosh, we even have the social organized speakers months out in advance. All these things that make it so easy. I feel like in our position, it's kind of easy to get a little blasé about it, a little complacent, and just be like, oh, I'm just kind of going through the motions. Whereas this is the time we should be pressing in. This is the time when we should be pushing the boat forward and advancing what we're doing. I'm personally always torn between the shiny new object and doing what's new, what's trendy, what is going to attract people quickly, versus the old tried and true methods. And that's something I struggle with, is like balancing doing what I know just consistently is what I should be doing, calling people, posting consistently, versus, hey, what's some new medium we can use? What's something that would work to attract people quickly? That's hard for me.
I appreciate that. I think what I would do then is just each of you pick 5 people to call and see if you can get 2 out of the 5 to show up, right? Then you have 4 new people that showed up, and then have a killer deal where you introduce them and then do it again next month. Right, and if they had a good experience this month, they'll be back next month anyways, right? And it's, you guys get to hang out and be friends. They're going to do what you guys did, which is like, I'm not just going because I get to see Kyle this week. That's going to be cool. I haven't seen Kyle. Oh, I get to see Patron, right? Yeah. So then it becomes an event that people are hanging out with each other. Now they're promoting it for you, but that first up front is going to be some hands-on stuff, where you're just like, hey, I know 5 agents that I think should be there. I'm going to call them personally. I'm going to send them an invite via the calendar. I'm going to make sure it's on there the day before. I'm going to recall them and say, don't forget about YPN. We want to see you. We've got this great topic I think you'd love. Yeah. Plus, if you just knew everybody who went, they are so fun, right? Build it up. And then all of a sudden you got 20, 30 people there, and they're the promoters. They're bringing everybody. They're like, oh yeah, I had 3 people from my office who wanted to come, didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
And then it starts to build through that grassroots, then promote it on social media and go that route.
Yeah, that's true. I can't remember who said it once, but they were like, yeah, we had an agent who would literally put other agents' emails in the calendar invite and just send it out. And so it would be on their calendar and they saw it. And I'm like, that's a really good idea because pretty much my day is based on my calendar.
Except paste, right?
That's it.
Yeah, Mindy would call people. Mindy would just call people.
Yeah.
Tony Clement and all these different brokers.
Tony, I met him once. And
Good guy.
Because I mentioned YPN and he was like, oh yeah, YPN. Like I was there in the beginning and Patrick Muldoon. I was like,
I know that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And now obviously he's a broker, right? Chris Cowles, right? Broker. Candace Graham, she's broker of 8Z. Bailey Carter, she's the broker owner of Coldwell Banker. These people all started out brand new in YPN. When we met these people, a lot of them, Bailey was new.
See, and it's funny hearing that because I remember getting into the industry at first, like, I guess part of it was I had a mentor that was very hesitant, very cautious about, be careful of what people want to sell you on. So I was always filtering things that I heard through that. But I remember hearing that early on, like, oh, dude, it's gonna be great for your business in the long run. You have to develop these relationships over time. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And then over time, I start to realize how valuable these relationships really are. Because it's not going to be one of those things where it's like you show up to a YPN meeting, and the next thing you know, you got 7 referrals and you're rich. That doesn't happen.
No.
You build relationships.
And you're there for the wrong reason if that's what you're trying. That's what I tell people all the time.
Yeah.
If that's what happened, great. The reason you're at YPN is to get to know other brokers that you might be doing deals with, better business skills that maybe you don't know, right? And you're building friendships. So Garrett Jones, 12, 13 years later, we're still grabbing a cigar once a month. Yeah. That started at YPN, right? Yeah. It's like those kind of relationships, and I can do that all day long with people I've met through YPN that are now friends and I lean on, right? And that's what people should be looking for. When new realtors talk to me about how do I build a business, it's hard to explain that your business is built a month in advance, 3 months in advance, a year in advance, 5 years in advance, right? You're continuously building towards your future. Mm-hmm. People get like very focused on my next lead, where I was always focused, where am I in 5 years, right? And how do I build to 5 years? I think that's how people should look at YPN. Like, I'm showing up today. Maybe today I don't get everything I need from it. Maybe I can't offer anything to it. But maybe in a year, I'm getting more from it. Yeah. And I can offer something back to it. And maybe in 3 years, I'm helping somebody else. And so then if you look at it on a longer term deal, right? When we met, it was a few years ago now, look how far you guys have come. But when you first came there, that wasn't the intent, right? That's not what you were thinking you were going to do or how you were going to get involved. Right, yeah. No, Day one, this guy's out.
Yeah, he's done.
Just give me 2 years.
No, it is funny actually, because now that I think about it, I remember it was Trent Hill and Lauren East, and she was the co-chair of YPN, right. And I think she was the one actually who invited me.
And it was a personal invite.
It was a personal invite.
And
she
it
was
stuck.
At my brokerage. It stuck. And I remember going thinking, this will be good, because I think kind of long term, I think way out in advance, and I think, where am I going to be in 1 year, 5 years? What seeds am I planting now that I will sow later? Because I know this is going to be valuable even if I don't see the fruit of it anytime soon. And so I showed up to YPN, and I remember my exact train of thought was, I'm going to sit down. I'm probably not going to say much. I'm just going to listen, and I'm going to hear what people have to say who have been doing this for a lot longer than I have. And of course, through diffusion, you meet people, you learn about the business and all that stuff. And I don't want to say fast forward because there's so much that happens in a few years, but I never went into it imagining, I'm going to be in leadership. I'm going to climb the ladder. I'm going to do all this stuff. But now I'm sitting on the Committee for Public Policy, which talks about legislation, the very important stuff that affects you and your business and your clients. I'm involved, going up to the Capitol, being super involved at the legislative level, being involved with the community at a local level. It's so cool how I personally have plugged in when I honestly didn't even really have an intention of doing all that. It's just kind of one day at a time, like you were talking about. You show up one day and you're like, oh, I really like these people, and like I do want to give back. And I guess it's just keeping an open mindset to what's possible once you take that first step.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you just don't know the road you're going to travel.
Yeah.
One day you're running YPN, and then the next thing you're president of RSC. Like it's like this
and
path
then the
that just lays
of the United States.
The next thing you know, you're running for president of the U.S. You just have no idea.
Next year.
Yeah, I just think that the mentality of this is going to happen quick is kind of like working out, right? If you go into it like, where am I going to be in 6 weeks? I'm like, well, really the game plan is like, where are you going to be in 2 years?
Yeah.
Right? The 6 weeks isn't the thing. It's the longevity of the deal. And that's real estate in general, right? That's the business building of real estate in general. So if you're a new realtor, you got to look at this as the longevity of your career based over a period of time, not next week. And I think that's where people often get lost in the minutia. My coach for working out wrote this letter, and it stuck with me. I cannot get rid of this phrase. He said, the time is passing either way. What are you going to do with it?
Oh, dang, that's good.
And it just hit me like, look, we're not slowing this roll down. So what we do while we're here is what matters.
Yeah.
Right? So in the fitness side of the world, it's like, look, you have options. You're either going to be where you want to be in a year or trending towards that goal or not. But the time passed either way. You're going to look backwards and go, what did I do with the last year? But that's really applicable throughout our lives, right?
Yeah.
And in real estate, it's absolutely applicable, which is, where am I in a year? Well, okay, that's great, but where am I in 5 years? Yeah. What relationships build a 10-year career? How'd I get to 30 years in the business now, right? And those were small baby steps that led to 3 decades in the business. And, did I start with, I'm going to be here 30 years from now? No, I just wanted to be, honestly, I was at the office, I just wanted to be a seasoned agent. Yeah. I remember being a new agent, and my Uncle John and my dad were always like, oh, thank God we got a seasoned agent on this deal. I'm like, man, I can't wait till I'm a seasoned agent. These new agents got a bad rep, right? Nothing's changed.
Sure.
Next thing, you're very seasoned.
Yeah,
Very seasoned.
That is just the toil of a young man and a young woman, is like seeing all these exciting things, seeing all the advanced chapters of people who have done the work and put in the time, and thinking, I want that, but I want it now. And it's like, no. You can take the steps to get that. I always say it's kind of related. I always say practice how you play. Like there's no, oh, when I get into the business, when I get married, when I'm a seasoned agent. It's like, no, do it now. Right. Practice how you want to play and start today.
Wire the brain for success.
Yeah. And I think another thing that's so huge, particularly for somebody like me, for a lot of people though, is something called analysis paralysis, where, I want to try this new marketing. I want to try door knocking. I want to try, this new brokerage. Then do it. Just do it, and if it works, then it works. And be reasonable, plan, and be smart about it. But it's like, oh man, I can never get an appointment set because of all these cold calls. How many calls did you make? 5.
Yeah.
Well, you better call so you get better.
That's
and
right.
Then do the research.
I can't lose weight. What'd you eat today? Total crap. Well, what do you expect? Like, you can't get both sides of that story, right? I mean, and I think it's so short-sighted, but to get people to play the long game is very difficult.
Yeah.
And we've created an industry that's been based on lead generation in the last 10 years, which we've never had that before, right? We built brokers in the past, and a lot of people who are watching this may or may not know that, but we built brokers. We built, here's how you're going to build a business. We didn't do that for the last 10 years. We've done a disservice to a lot of agents. What we did was teach them how to convert leads.
Yeah.
That's way different than building a business. You can be a great lead converter and not build a business, right? That's right. So I think that's something that's got to change as brokers. Yeah. I also ran into, when I was chair, a lot of broker owners didn't want their brokers coming to YPN. They thought they'd be poached. I think that's pretty small-minded. And I would say if you're a broker owner and that's your concern, that probably should not be if you want the best for your agent, right?
Exactly.
Wait, why do you think that is? Why would they say that?
Because they were concerned that other brokers that were going there would then bring their brokers in, and it was...
Gotcha. Well,
and does that happen? Sure, I'm sure that happens. That happens anyways, though. Yeah. But I really want my brokers to be the best brokers. All of my brokers came to YPN.
Yeah. I think this might be a controversial opinion, but I think when they're in highly competitive situations like that, where they see other agents that maybe are successful or doing things right, that should be a good thing. You should have competitive advantage at your brokerage, and you should be proud of that. If KW, if EXP, if Coldwell Banker, if whoever is doing something better than you, awesome. Kudos to them. You should steal that. You should do that.
It should literally like sharpen the blade.
Yeah. If you just want to sit around like dull agents who aren't doing that well, and you're trying to insulate yourself from, maybe this is getting a little cynical, but like if you're just trying to insulate yourself from other, oh, don't go there. You don't want to see that. It's like, no.
I do think though that's part of the issue, not just at the broker owner level, because a lot of them encourage it also, but at the agent level, they just don't see what they're going to get from it. Exactly. Well, I don't want to, they're my competition. Why would I go hang out with a bunch of realtors?
Gotcha.
Right, what am I going to learn from realtors? If I'm going to do that, I should go hang out with clients. And what I can tell you is you will learn more from your realtor friends than anything, right? The other night, one of our brokers called me that we went to YPN, and they were having an issue, and they're like, I need to talk this through with you. That was a relationship from YPN again, right? And everything came together fine, and 30 minutes later called up and said, you gave me great advice. I almost derailed this situation, right? So that's something that I wouldn't have had that relationship if it wasn't for YPN. Just would not have happened.
That's so nice to hear.
What would your advice be for a new realtor? Like, just got their license today, they don't know what to do. What do they do?
That's a big one.
It is a big one because it's very hard because our industry's created this, well, find a team with leads and then convert their leads. And I don't think that's bad advice if you're brand new, and that's something that you can do, but ultimately you're gonna have to build a business. And that business is going to take time. This is a contact sport. That's what people forget, right? The more contacts I make and the better I am at my business, the more business I'm going to have. What does that mean? I tell my agents, look, you should join meetups, right? Great, I'm glad you're on the phone and you're doing a lot of that, right? That's great, but all of my business is not phone calls. My business is, I was at the RC shop playing RC cars. This guy 3 months later is like, you sell real estate? I've got a house that I need to sell, or I've got a house that I need to buy, right? Contact sport, the more people I could contact. And I learned that very young. So when I'm like in my 20s, first time home buyers, not too dissimilar, I start throwing house parties. It was the only thing I knew what to do. I was like, I'm gonna throw house parties and all of my friends are gonna invite more friends. I'm gonna meet more people. By meeting more people, I'm gonna sell more houses. And it worked. It was a contact sport. Next thing you know, I'm four-wheeling with these people. Next thing you know, they're getting married. I'm buying their house. They're selling their parents, right? It just explodes. But it was not off of lead gen. We didn't have that. It was off contact and staying in touch with people.
Yeah.
And I think we miss that now. I think a lot of the brokers, Mike McGuire, right? Platinum Group. That guy's a contact sport. He calls, he writes, handshakes, gets out in front of people. He closes a ton of real estate today. His job has not changed because of lead generation. His job has stayed consistent because of relationships. That's a big, big difference. So if you're a new agent, is lead gen bad? No. But long term, if you want to stay in the business, you're going to have to build your sphere. You're going to have to take care of that sphere. You're going to have to be with people. I went to a ton of weddings. I went to a ton of birthdays. I was just like, anything somebody would invite me to, I was there. I'm like, this is where I meet more people to make more contacts, to become the realtor that's in front of everybody. And it worked, and it's created a very good business for me.
That's so funny because I feel like a lot of people, newer agents in the business, based on what they've been hearing, probably what got them into the business, they're hearing that and they're like, I don't like that.
I don't like that.
But at the same time, it's like, why wouldn't you? Because like you said, it was a contact sport with people that you wanted to be around. You were playing with RC cars. Guess what? I'm doing that. I'm enjoying what I enjoy. I'm around people.
You like
that
mountain
enjoy
biking?
something.
You like cars?
Yeah.
Right?
What's so different about that?
Nothing. You're literally taking something you already enjoy, and now you're getting around people. Now you got to get your skills down.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. I tell my agents all the time, people are not adapting to you. Good salespeople are adapting to the person. I need to know what their personality is and how to talk to them and how to adapt quickly to that. The more successful you can become at that, the quicker you're going to build rapport and relationships. That's just a time in the business and learning that, right? Some people never learn it, but those that learn that to be able to adapt to personalities, and sometimes obviously you're adapting to two personalities, right? You might have a couple. One is very colorful with like, I love this floor plan, and the other's an engineer, right? And now you're working both sides of that when you're talking to them. But I think learning people is a very important thing that we've also lost in parts of the business because of lead gen, because it's just been like, answer that phone, answer that phone, answer that phone.
Yeah.
Call them 10 times, you're going to get the lead. So I think it's just maybe deeper if you want a longer, more satisfying business. And it is satisfying then.
Yeah. Okay. If you had one, unless you have anything else,
No.
one final thought, one closing message, one last thing to say from Patrick Muldoon to YPNers out there, what would that be?
Leadership is absolutely for everybody, but you've got to wait for it to call you. But there's going to be a time that you listen to this message or a message in the future that you think to yourself, I should get involved, like this speaks to me. And I can tell you that YPN's a great place to start, but I'll also tell you that the board has plenty of areas that you probably don't even know about. You can go to community relations where that's one sector, or you can go into public policy if you love the government, or if you want to run the board, you can be on the board of directors. The fact of the matter is everybody gets a hinkering at some point. Mine took 17 years. But you know what? That leadership calling was at the exact right time. I did with what the board I couldn't have done at 2 years in the business. At 17 years and a ton of business and a ton of contacts, I was probably right time, right place. So you will get that, and then you should get involved. And that is the big takeaway, because there's a lot of things that happen in your life, but helping others downstream from you to get to a place is probably the best thing you can leave behind.
Dang, that's so
Love
good.
it.
That's
Such
so
a wise
good.
man. Listen to his words.
Such a wise man. Such a wise man.
Such a wise man.
I think so.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, this has been.
I've got a question for you too.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
So here's what I want to know. What is the best part of real estate that you have taken away up to this point in your career?
Usually I'm quick to answer, but I might need a second to think about that one, because that's a big question, because so many things come to mind immediately. I would love to say the people who have gotten to meet, and not even for financial reasons either. Like, oh, this is a contact, this is a lead. Like, I meet people and I hear stories that I never would have heard if I weren't in the business, both on the agent side and like my professionals, like the lenders, title reps, insurance people, stuff like that. But also my clients. Like, I just meet fascinating people in fascinating walks of life, some good and exciting, some sad and hard, and I get to be there for them. And I know we joke about like being people's therapists all the time, but it is an honor to meet people when they're low and support them and help them and be there for them. And that's been really incredible. But I would say, I think the potential, because some people also joke that real estate is kind of like the Wild West a little bit. Where it's like, not that we make up the rules or we're going around and being manipulative, but unlike other businesses that are so highly regulated, I just think of finance or other things. For example, real estate, it's like you close deals, or you're in property management, or you're in any of those supporting roles. You can do so much in real estate in so many different facets of the transaction or whatever, and as long as you're doing business, like, that's what matters. You can pull leads from anywhere, internationally, nationally, in one neighborhood if you wanted. You can only sell, you can only buy, you can manage properties, you can, specialize in REOs. Like, you can do marketing, photography. Like, you can do so many things in real estate, and the potential is endless. I love that, and no day looks the same. I don't mind doing computer work, working at home, remote work. I love going out to meet people, but if I did one of those things every single day, I think it would drive me insane. The fact that every single day for me is different, and it's always new, it's always a different situation, which some people can't handle. Like, some people are like, no. Oh my gosh, it's never the same.
Exactly
my
right.
Deals are never consistent.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love that. It's fun. It's something new to tackle. It's something new to explore. It's something new to learn. And then it's also something new to give, right? What can I be teaching? I personally love teaching new agents. There's just something about it that's so exciting, is like meeting new agents where they're at. Oh man, I just got in the business. This is my motivation. This is what industry I came from. Like, that's so awesome to hear. Like, how can I help you best serve your clients? How can I help you best serve your target market? How can I help you run your business better so that you and your family are happier for it?
Yeah, I feel like real estate, I read a book about horses, and in the book, the lady says to the instructor, she says, "It's so hard, I will never know everything about horses." And she said, "Aren't you glad you picked a hobby you'll never master?" And I feel like that's real estate, right? Now, Kari, for you, different question. What do you feel leadership has done for you so far?
It's actually done a lot. I never really considered myself as a leader, but like all my life, people would tell me, "Oh, like, you're a great leader, you should do this, you should do this," but I never thought about that for myself. So actually being in a leadership role has really helped me understand my own personality and understand what I'm good at. So like, one thing, I make people feel comfortable, and I realize that about myself. So I'm really good at just helping people understand themselves as well. Like, I've had clients call me at 2 a.m. drunk, like, "Oh my gosh, help me," like, so sad, and like, I'll sit there and listen. I make people feel comfortable enough to be open with me, so I can help people in that sense. That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. Well, I'm glad you guys are chair and co-chair together. I thought that this was a good thing. I think I wanted this to be the case a year ago, and you didn't do it, right? And now, like, here you are. Again, right time. And I think you guys are doing a great job, and I really appreciate both of you.
Thank you. Yeah, just so you guys know, Patrick was one of those ones that I don't want to say voluntold, but there was a little nudge on the shoulder. There was a little poke of like, "Hey, you guys should get into leadership. This is something I see being a very great value and benefit to you and to the community if you would get into." And I was like, we'll see.
I'm glad you did, both of you, right? And now it's come around where you're like, I'm glad I did too.
I'm
like,
so glad
just
I
need
did.
that little bump, but then once you do it, you're like, oh yeah. Yeah, it's great.
And like you were saying, I feel like it just opens the doors because there's so much that once I've stepped in, I'm like, oh, that's not it. There's more. And not that this is not satisfying or good, but it's always a stepping stone.
It is.
There's always more to it.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
I love the business and I love the board.
yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
Me too, man.
You too.
I love you too, dude. Anyway, all right. YPN PPAR 2024. I'm Kyle Wong, your 2024 chair.
I'm Kari Wright, your 2024 co-chair.
And Patrick Muldoon, your 2011-2012 past chair.
Jeez. Get him in a museum.
Your name.
Get him in a museum.
Thank you, Patrick.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You too.